Hi everyone, today we're going to talk about writing a recommendation report. Whoops, sorry, went too fast. So in this presentation, I'm going to talk about understanding the role of the recommendation report, using a problem-solving model for your preparing a recommendation report, and writing comprehensive recommendation reports. So a recommendation report addresses these questions. What should we do about a particular problem? Should we do a particular activity or action? Should we use a particular technology to complete an action? We currently use this. Should we be using something else? And so these are the kinds of questions that a recommendation report answers. And you will likely be asked to evaluate some kind of tools, some kind of software, depending on your position, and to come up with a recommendation. And so following this, whether you're writing a formal report or not, but following this method is really going to help you to make the best possible choices and decisions and to be able to justify your recommendation, which is key. You don't want to just recommend something and not be able to explain why you should do it. So a feasibility report looks at questions of possibility, questions of economic wisdom, questions of perception. So is it possible to do X or Y? Is it economically intelligent or feasible to do X or Y? Is it going to cost the company too much money to do this? And then questions of perception. How is this going to look to our clients or our customers if we do a particular thing? So in order to come to a decision, you need to kind of follow these steps. And following these steps are really how you're going to go about creating your recommendation report. So the first thing you need to do is identify the problem or the opportunity. Perhaps you have an opportunity to buy a piece of equipment that's on sale, okay? And then you want to establish your criteria, all right? Your criteria is what is it you're looking for from that equipment? Does it need to be cost effective? Does it need to last a long time? Does it need to produce a certain number of items in a particular time period? And then once you've established your criteria, you want to look at your options. Is there other equipment out there? Are there other pieces of equipment out there that can meet your criteria? And if so, you want to get them in your list of options. Then the next point you're going to do is study each of your options. And you want to try to get at least 3 options. 2 options may be acceptable depending on what it is that you're looking to do or looking to recommend. But 3 is always a good number. So usually what happens when you have 3 is 1 just doesn't work. It might be cost prohibitive. It just might not suit your needs. And then the other 2 are close. But by getting that 3, you kind of show your audience that you've done your homework and that you're not just looking for the easiest route, that you're actually going in depth a little bit. So then you study your options according to your criteria. So what is it that you're going to need? You've determined what you need, and then you're going to look at how each of your options fits into that criteria. What do they offer? And then you're going to draw conclusions. So option A offers X, Y, and Z. Option B offers D, E, and F. And option C offers A, B, and Z, or A, B, and L. And so you're going to try to determine which of those options best fit your criteria. That's what you're doing when you're drawing your conclusions. Then once you have determined which of your options best meets your criteria, you're going to determine from that what you should do, how you should go forward. And so that is your actual recommendation. This is what we should do based on the research that I have done, okay? So one way to demonstrate that you have done this is to use logic block boxes, and that gives you kind of what your options are. It kind of spells it out for you. And so Your question, you start with your question, should we repair or replace our photocopier? Repairing it would not meet long-term needs. Replacing it would be the better decision in the long term. Should we look at color copiers? Well, color would be useful, but we can't justify the cost because we do not use color that often. Black and white would be much better value and meet almost all of our needs. So we've come to that. So copier A is good, copier B is excellent, copier C is good, copier D is unacceptable. So what you're doing with this is you're showing your thought process. How is it that you've determined what it is? And so we've come to our conclusions that B is excellent. So now where do we go from there? Well, this shows how we actually came to those conclusions, how we got our ranking. And this is called a decision matrix. And these are great. It's kind of like a pro and con list, but it's a little bit more in depth than that. So on the left-hand side, we've got our criteria and weight. So our criteria for our copier is how many pages a minute, duplex, does it make multiple copies in front and back, and then color, okay? And then we're ranking them by importance. So the way that we got the score is we're weighting them and then rating, okay? So number 1 is the pages per minute. That's not that important. Number 3 is the duplex, and that is important. And number 4 is color is really very, very important. So rating is for pages per minute, a 9, a 1, and a 10. So our score for the RICO is it got a 9 out of 1 through 10 for the rating. So we multiply the weight times the rating, that's 9. We did the duplex, 3 times 1, that's 3, and color 4 times 10, that's 40. So we know that the RICO does really good with color, and it does really well with pages per minute, and its duplex is fair, okay? When we look at the Xerox, we see that its pages per minute is a 6, which is okay. Its duplex is a 9, which is higher than the RICO, so that's pretty important. And its color is a 4, which means it really just didn't do a whole lot with color. So that gives Xerox a total score of 19. Then we looked at the Sharp. The Sharp isn't very fast. It only does 3. We only gave it a rating of 3. And it does duplex quickly. It's good with duplex, so we gave that a 30. And its color is strong, so we gave that a 40. So it comes up with a score of 73. And so being able to rank your options is a really important tool to help demonstrate that you've done your research, that you know what you're talking about, that you've looked at specific criteria, that you've ranked the criteria, and that you've given scores to each of these options based on your research. So you have to be able to explain your decision matrix. It's not just a great idea to have one, you have to explain what it is you did. So be able to explain why you chose each of your criterion or didn't choose a particular criterion. Explain why you assigned a particular weight to each item, and explained why you assigned a particular rating. A lot of times when you're looking up items, particularly online doing your research, if you were researching printers, for example, if you went to something like Amazon, they have their ratings there, and they even have it broken down by different, speed, color, those kinds of things. So you can kind of say, I got this from this place, or maybe you went to a different kind of place online that, like CNET or something like that, that deals with my mind is going blank, that deals with printers, sorry, going blank here. So then you want to present your conclusions. You're going to rank all of your options. You're going to classify the options as acceptable or unacceptable. and then present a compound conclusion. And what I mean by a compound conclusion is it's going to be complex. It's not just A is the best option because. It is A and B are the top options, and I recommend B because over A because. And so you want to be very specific in your recommendations and explain why, what the top two are, why they're the top two, and which one you prefer of the top two. So then we get to the actual report itself. And the report has three major sections. It has the front matter, the body of the report, and the back matter. The front matter are basic things like the executive report, the summary, the table of contents, those kinds of things. We're going to focus mostly on the body of the report, which I'll talk about in a minute. And then the back matter are any appendix, any kinds of keys that you need to do, any kinds of references that you want to include. They're going to be your back matter. So the body includes an introduction, methods, results, conclusions, and recommendations. And I'll go through these a little bit, but just the introduction introduces what it is you're doing. Your methods are your methods of research. You're looking at this. Your results are your findings. What have you found? Your conclusions are what you found or what you have determined based on your results, and then your recommendation. So this is a recommendation report is sort of like a big research project. And so you're looking to answer a research question, and you're doing your research, you're explaining how you did your research and how you came to the conclusions that you came to. It's pretty much a research paper. So your introduction has addresses these questions. What is the subject of the report? To look at options for repairing or replacing our printer. What is the purpose of the report? To determine what the best course of action is. Background of the report. In the last month, for the last 6 months, the printer has been repaired 3 times, and we're trying to determine if it's cost effective to continue to repair it or if it would be better to just replace it. Then where did you get your information? Where does it come from? Does it come from research you did? Does it come from, talking to colleagues? And then what is the scope of the report? What did you look at? So you examined 3 different types of printers or 3 different options. So all of this is answered in the introduction. And this is a little bit different from a research paper, because in a research paper you kind of build up to this. But this is done in the introduction of your report. You also answer in your introduction, what are the most significant findings? What are your recommendations? What is the organization of the report? So you explain how the report is organized, and what are the key terms you're using. So basically, the introduction is really answers all of the basics. It doesn't go into depth about anything, but it gets the key information out there. And again, if you're thinking about readability, someone who is going to read this report wants to be able to look at your recommendations really quickly and easily. So you want that very clearly presented in your introduction. And then the rest of your report is your justification. So your body of the report, methods, what did you do? How did you research? What kind of research did you do? Your results, what did you see or determine? What did you find from your decision matrix? What conclusions? What does it mean? What do your results mean? And then what would you like us to do? What should we do? How should we go forward? How should we proceed? And this is really clear. You don't want to say, in my opinion, I think, I feel, I believe. You want to say, I recommend that we, whatever, purchase this copier A, eliminate process B, whatever it is that you have researched, You want to clearly recommend. So you want to say, I recommend that, and make sure that there is a clear recommendation. So some of the front matter that comes before your introduction. The letter of transmittal, that's if you're sending it out of the company, a cover page, a title page, an abstract. The abstract is going to be, this report examines the best way, or our best options for moving forward on replacing or repairing our copy machine. You want a table of contents, a list of illustrations if you have them, and your executive summary. Okay, so those are the elements in your front matter. The executive summary is similar to the abstract, only the difference, or the key difference, between the abstract and the executive summary is that you present in the executive summary what your recommendations are and why. So basically, the executive summary is for the company CEO to look at and read and be able to make a decision based on the information you provided in the executive summary of the best course of action. Should I spend money on this? Should I purchase X, Y, or Z? So the difference between a descriptive and an informative abstract. A descriptive abstract describes the kind of information contained in the report. So this report looks at. And an informative abstract presents the major findings. Either one of them is appropriate. It depends on the purpose of the report and who's going to be reading the report. If it's going out of office, probably a descriptive. If it's staying in office, an informative abstract will probably be the most effective. So when writing an executive summary, use specific evidence in describing the background, be specific in describing the research you did, describe the methods briefly, describe the findings according to your reader's needs, and ask an outside reader to review your draft. You always want to do that with an executive summary, because this is what the CEO, your boss's boss's boss, is going to be looking at, and it's going to reflect on you and the organization. So you want to make sure that it is an example of your best work. Certainly it's not a time for typos. It's not a time not to proofread. It's a time to really be careful and to read very carefully and make sure that you've presented the best possible information. When you're writing your report, content, be clear and specific. If the project has been unsuccessful, don't simply recommend that you try some alternatives. What alternatives do you recommend? So if you looked at A, B, and C and you didn't come up with a conclusion that you're happy with, don't just say, well, C is better than nothing. Explain, more research needs to be done on. So that's okay. That's a good recommendation report. You're still recommending a course of action. We need to look at this further. We need to spend more time, whatever it is. Tone. When you recommend a new course of action, don't be offensive. You don't want to say you have to correct somebody's mistakes, or because of this idiot that we used to have. You want to explain that this new course of action can benefit the company because. You don't want to call names or make somebody look badly. You want to just say, this is a better option because, not that somebody did something wrong. So be really careful about the tone, and be respectful of your colleagues, and make sure that you're not name calling or calling people out and making someone else look bad. Form. If the report leads to only one recommendation, use traditional paragraphs. If the report leads to more than one recommendation, consider it a numbered list. Okay, so just depending on what your recommendations, what you conclude based on your research. Location. Consider including a summary of the recommendations, or if they are brief, the full list after the executive summary or in the introduction, as well as in the at the end of the body of the report. Again, we're looking at readability, we're looking at ease of finding the information, because the purpose of the report is to provide your readers with the best course of action. This is the best course of action. This is why this is the best course of action. This is how we should proceed. This is why we should proceed this way. So again, the back matter, glossary and lists of symbols, references, appendices, all of those. If, again, depending on what you need, maybe you don't have a list of symbols, so you just have references. Maybe you don't have appendices. Maybe you have a combination of any of these two, or you just have one. That's fine. It just depends on your topic and how, comprehensive you are and what you needed to do. So that's about writing a recommendation report. If you have questions, by all means, post them in the questions and concerns forum, and I look forward to hearing from you soon.